Welcome back, everyone. I am not Julia Piper. That was recorded earlier, and we are just replaying that for those who didn't get a chance to watch it earlier. My name is Randy Bell. I am the director of the Global Energy Center at the Atlantic Council. Before we get started with the rest of our programming for the evening here in Washington, morning in Asia, I want to highlight one of the key findings from the Global Energy Agenda Survey, which is something publication we launched earlier today in Washington. So this part of the survey, we asked our survey respondents, will COVID-19 accelerate or impede the energy transition? Now, this is really relevant for the next couple of panels that we're going to hear from. We're going to hear two about Asia, where you're going to see a huge amount of energy demand growth, but also a lot of innovation in in clean technologies, and a lot of new commitments towards climate action. And then we're also going to hear about innovation ecosystems. So how to think about creating the new technologies that might solve some of our climate problems. But we asked the survey respondents, will COVID-19 accelerate or impede the energy transition? And I think this is a really interesting question. Overall, most of the respondents thought it would accelerate a lot or somewhat. You'll see here, 13% thought it would accelerate a lot, 48% thought it would accelerate somewhat. Only 19% thought it wouldn't do much, 17% impede somewhat, and only 3% thought it would impede a lot. I'm going to break this data down a little further. We found in our survey that there are three schools of thought, three groupings of energy experts. And they were really defined by how they view peak oil demand. There were the energy transition bulls that thought peak oil demand would happen, has already happened, or will happen relatively quickly. There are the moderate group. They see peak oil demand in the 2030s. And then there are the energy transition bears. The peak oil demand won't happen until 2040 or may never happen at all. Now, these three groupings were essentially internally consistent views of the world and the energy system. And so we see a lot of interesting results in our survey if you break it down into those groups. And so from here, what we see is that the bulls thought, the transition bulls, so those who thought peak oil demand was going to be happening sooner, they thought 74% of them thought the pandemic would accelerate the energy transition. So significantly higher than the overall average. Now, in the energy transition bears, those that thought peak oil demand won't happen until the 2040s or never at all, only 35% of those thought that the pandemic would accelerate the energy transition, and 47% thought it would impede somewhat or a lot. So you're seeing this real breakdown in the ways in which people are thinking about the energy transition. And I think the key takeaway from the survey and from the report that we launched this morning is that there are a lot of options. There's a moment where the decisions we make in 2021 are going to have the opportunity to reset the energy system. Nothing is inevitable, though. So the choices that we make, the choices that policymakers make, the choices that corporations make are really what's going to reshape this energy system. We have an opportunity because of COVID-19, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we will get there. Now that we're all caught up, we're going to go to Asia. We're going to get started with our programming for the rest of the evening. I want to start on the eve of this inauguration. We'll look to soon-to-be President Biden's energy and foreign policy agenda in Asia. We're so excited to look to some of the most dynamic foreign policy challenges and opportunities that lay in store for the next administration. After that, we're going to examine China's net zero pledge. China last year made a pledge to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2060. It really shocked the world. Because they are the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter. We have a remarkable panel, experts from China, experts from the United States, and Kevin Rudd, the former Prime Minister of Australia, will be giving a keynote. That's going to be a really, really fascinating conversation. And that's at 11 p.m. Eastern. After that, we're releasing a new report written by my colleagues Peter Engelke and Margaret Jackson on energy innovation ecosystems. Peter wrote a paper a couple of years ago looking at innovation ecosystems writ large. How do localities create the world? That's my dog barking in the background. I just need to tell you, we've moved to a remote studio because in Washington, D.C., with the inauguration tomorrow, we can't actually get into our office. So back to Peter's paper. He looked at the issues, the factors that shaped successful innovation ecosystems across the technology landscape. What was the policy? What was the investment community like? What was the education system like in each of those places that had a successful innovation environment? So this past year, he's done a deep dive with my colleague Maggie on what the energy innovation or what he calls the green tech innovation ecosystem looks like, and what are the factors that help create that ecosystem. Why is that important? Because we've all realized that while renewables are moving forward, advancing, renewables, in fact, were the only energy source that did better in 2020 than in previous years. They probably aren't enough to solve all of our climate challenges. And so we need new technologies, whether that's inventing them, creating them, or really just taking technologies that we have and scaling them and making them commercial. So Peter and Maggie examine this, and they have on their panel a number of people who are deeply, deeply engaged in the innovation space. And that's going to be a really, really fascinating conversation. Barbara Berger from Chevron Technology Ventures, Emily Reichert, who's the CEO of Greentown Labs, which is a clean tech incubator in Boston, but they've just opened, or they're soon to be opening, outpost in Houston to take advantage of the energy expertise that Houston has. Some might think that would be in conflict, given that Houston is a hydrocarbon hub and Greentown Labs is really looking to build clean energy technologies. However, what's become clear over the course of the first day of the Global Energy Forum is that we really need to work with the oil and gas community if we are going to reach our climate goals. So that's what we have in store for tonight. We're going to go back to Asia right now.